put her mind. Actually, she was trying to reproduce the talk of the young girls. They're talking about the finishing school. Young girls at the this finishing school, and especially when they were talking about girly stuff, you know, like for instance the pains of menstruation. I find it this difficult to understand because I don't. I mean, I kind of considered, you know. I was asking girls around, but they look, you know, they were not thing, you know.
You should follow Granny McGonagall.
So this was a problem for me, and I'm not happy at all with the translation, nor was the publisher. So after that, I decided to do only men.
Stick to
and
it.
then, then it happened that one of the most important passages of Ulysses is Molly's monologue. And one would think that this is a woman writing, but it's not. It's a man writing, actually imagining how a woman might think. And I don't know if this was successful or not. I mean,
I was telling Catherine earlier on, I heard on the radio a comment by a famous Joyce scholar who said Joyce knew nothing about women. So he invented a fat man called Molly Bloom. I don't know if I agree. I mean, the monologue, Molly Bloom, is famous because of what it is, because it's meant to be exactly what a woman, sentiments and thoughts and whatever goes through a woman's mind.
My experience with students is that they read text in English and in translation, so they have both experiences there. Girls, women, they like it a lot, and they identify with it. Men don't, probably because of this, because of the attempt to have the thoughts of a woman spelled out.
Which means it's successful then.
I don't know, because I mean only a part of it enjoyed, you know, the rest want to throw the book at me.
But in the case of the Muriel Sparta, I mean, was that not just the case with that particular book, rather than the fact
I think
that
so,
it was
because
written by a woman?
Yeah, because it was like a book about teenagers, you know.
Yeah, and finishing school.
The finishing school, you know. So I tried to, I did my best, but there was no way I could feel like a girl of 15, 16.
But was the whole thing there as well not more cultural rather than gender?
Yeah, it is in a way.
You know, so I mean, if that book had been based, let's say, in Ireland, and you were much more comfortable with the culture, the fact that it had been written by a woman, it might not have caused you the same difficulty.
Yeah, I mean,
it would be very sad to say that only women can translate women's.
No, it is sad. It's not a message to be sent. I'm talking about the personal idiosyncrasies. Like a translator like myself, I don't feel uncomfortable. It's just that I realize that I have limitations. You know, like I understand women to a certain extent. That there's a wall that I cannot overcome. You know.
Pluto and Mars.
Yeah.
But then you have men who write wonderful women characters, like Judith Hearn, the Brave Words, the Passion Judith Hearn. So for translators to make believe, it's not that different from a writer making believe.
But maybe a writer is responsible for his own work. A translator is responsible for his own work and for the work of the writer in terms of what readers are going to read. Because when readers are reading, you know, Catherine's book in Italian, they are, they are reading also the words of the translator. And let's say that the translator wants to, the translator hates Catherine and he wants to put a mistake in there. He put a mistake, nobody sees it, and your book will come out.
We are professionals.
It depends on the publisher. Sometimes publishers don't have good editors. Sometimes books just handed in and published, you know. Of course, it's not the case of your publisher, but like smaller publishing houses, this could happen in theory. Or even like some people might not recognize something, cannot understand something. You know? So in theory, when a reader is reading a book in translation, he is also reading, you know, the words of the translator, which puts a lot of pressure on the translator.
It also brings up the issue: what you do if you dislike a book and you accept it.
I should never do a book that you don't like. You know, you should never translate a book that you don't like. I mean,
so what you do, you return it and say.
Okay, my case is different because I don't. You know, I'm a translator of classical writers, so.
Yes. You probably choose your authors.
Yeah, I choose my authors. You know.
Yeah.
Once they're dead.
Yeah, once they're dead, yeah. painfully.
Let's spare the whole life.
Like for instance, he's done Good Soldier right now, you know, for Maddox for.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
did you like it? I mean,
He's dead.
but I know that he's not your favorite writer, but you did the book.
You were not supposed to say that. No, it's true. No. First of all, I would like to say that I have translated female writers, and I love that. Though there is a problem. My wife was jealous.
It is true because you live with those
Oh,
characters.
I love translating her, so I won't tell the name. And no, I'm joking. Rahil, she lives in France. She has written lovely short stories. And novels actually, but I just translated 2 short stories. One which was part of the collection Dubliners 100. Before it was basically a rewriting of Joyce's short story. And another one, the title was Parts, and she wrote that short story on the occasion of a festival, literary festival, okay? And that short story was translated into Italian, into German, into French, and therefore there were 3 translators there. Actually, I was the only male translator, but I loved it. I loved it.
As an experiment, I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
You have a short text, so you can work together in a significant way. You couldn't do a book with many people, but the short text and work together, I'm sure it opens all sorts of possibilities.
I'm looking forward to translating her again.
Right.
Beautiful. Even though, yeah, it's true, it's different. It really depends on the author. Certain female authors would be very difficult to me, and I would probably not dare. But sometimes it really depends on the author. And on the events being told, as I was actually joking about. It really depends on what is being told, you know? It really depends on what you have done previously, and whether you really manage to understand what the feelings actually are in that book.
But fortunately the opposite doesn't apply, because the vast majority of translators, certainly in Italy and probably in other countries, are women. And if only men could translate men, we would really be totally out of a job. But it doesn't work that way, as you say. It's the character, it's the voice of the text, and that's what counts. I found extremely successful the way Volidor Paula Spencer.
That was actually
Fantastic, yeah, fantastic as a woman, fantastic how the character developed and grew into a role, absolutely extremely credible. And the same for Grace Notes, Bernard McLaren.
Yeah.
The parallel between giving birth to music and giving birth to a child, and, or the gestation, and fantastic. So I have absolutely no problem with those male authors bringing up the voice. And then for himself, no problem. Any woman can write as a man.
Yes, I think
Probably
so, yeah.
easier, slightly easier than the other way around.
Do you think so?
I don't know why. But, mind you, translating those 2 books, or those 3 books, the Paula Spencer's and Grace Notes, was a great pleasure. Fantastic writing, basically.
Yeah,
You can get into it, and they can get into you. You don't need anything else.
So, you mentioned the way this perception of Irish writing in Italy has been morphing. Could you tell more about that? What is this perception now?
Well, I think the big breakthrough was when the football championship was in Italy, Italia 90, was a cultural turning point. You don't believe it, but that's when it happened. When you two started to get known. When Ireland went to Italy to take part in Italia 90, Italy discovered Ireland.
When was that?
1990. Italia 90 is 1990. I remember before that I used to search the bookshops in Italy. There were no Irish authors translated, nobody had heard of them, so I kept proposing them to publishers and so on, Irish authors. Yeah, you find the odd one, you find a choice, you find a famous one, very rarely. And then suddenly things changed. There were books by Irish authors in Italy before I knew that the original book had come out here. So that was the big explosion. Total coincidence, but that's when perception changed and when Ireland became Ireland culturally, really, in my opinion. I don't know if you have other
Perhaps.
points of view.
Go on.
Off you go.
No, I was thinking something. I was thinking a deeper sponsoring it.
But I thought this is too silly a joke to make. You
I don't know, but I can talk about myself. I grew interested in Ireland first through music, to Irish music, but not YouTube. I don't like YouTube at all.
No, but that was the big
Yeah.
success.
Yeah, I know. Well, but it didn't work for me. Like when I was looking for Irish authors, it was not because of them. And then I was interested in politics, especially in the north, in the north. So I started reading things about Ireland and everything. But I think that, my case does not apply for the general public.
No, it's when Italy discovered, not individual.
So when Italy, even now, I mean, we do have a kind of a stereotypical vision of Ireland in Italy. It's not like, sometimes I meet a lot of people at conferences, Irish Italian conferences, and they all talk about the similarity between Italians and Irish, the religious factor, for instance, all the importance of culture in the two countries. But I do think that there's a lot of stereotypes there, that we do like Ireland mostly because of the I would call it the postmodern version of the stage Irishman. A lot of people still, even that thing about the football the championship. I mean, the streets in Italy were crowded by Irish people dressed like leprechauns,
Yes.
And so this worked a lot in the imagination. They were all drunk. So this also, helped.
But happy drunk.
Happy drunk. So
Sure.
a lot of people become interested in Ireland also because of this stereotype. I'm not saying that you come to Ireland if there's no drunks or there's no leprechauns, because there are. But this is available, and I think it works also the other way around. When the Irish people come to Italy, they are interested in, of course, the Italian things, the wine, spaghetti, whatever. But it is very difficult to find actually an Irish person that really knows his stuff about Italy, because of this stereotypical thing, So this also produced on the cultural sector the fact that for some time any book that was by an Irish writer got published,
Absolutely. Whether it
Everything.
is or not.
Everything. So for instance, we only have one book by McGahern. McGahern is not translated, and I think that McGahern is probably one of the best writers in this country. We don't have Paddy Kavanagh, to my knowledge, So it is very difficult to do this, to actually convince a publisher that they have to look for a different kind of Ireland and not that stereotypical one, So does this make sense at all?
So do you think a lot of the books then that are published in Italy play up the stereotype?
Play it, not now,
Not
but
now.
for those 10 years,
Right.
those 10 years,
Okay.
Like for those 10 years, if Roddy Doyle had written a shopping list, they would publish the shopping list. Everything was going to go published because it was like fashion.
Yeah.
And now this fashion is dying out. So now, we do have a few Irish writers that are still published. A lot of them are not. And the interest is actually, kind of fading away. So
But
this
it's
now
settled.
it's
But even a lot of that isn't that kind of a feature of distance as well? I mean, I did a social history on Irish immigrants in London who had left here in the 1950s because 500,000 people left the country in that decade. And although they had to come back on holiday and come back for Christmas and all that sort of stuff, when I interviewed them, the distance between the country that they had left and the country that they were living in, everything was mythologized. Only the good parts were spoken about, and in fact, parts that never existed were spoken about. About this wonderful, and yes, of course, they came from tightly knit communities in many cases, but their memory was mythologized to such an extent that it was completely unrecognizable to me, which is why I went ahead and did about 200 interviews, because I couldn't believe this vision of Ireland. And I at one stage I said to somebody, but if it was so wonderful, why did you go? And to me, the sort of the stereotype that you're talking about, I mean, if you ask any of the mainly British people who settle in Tuscany, why they settle in Tuscany, it's that same kind of mythology, isn't it?
It is.
It's all sunshine, it's all beautiful, it's all art, and it's not.
Yes.
It's wars like everywhere else.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of, somehow we look for that sometimes in another country. We look for something we don't have here, and then it becomes mythologized and it becomes not real at all.
Not real and also problematic, because from in my case, the only problem, probably the only case of censorship I could feel on my experience was the Manik's Fiend's book, which was about sexual abuse by priests. The publisher did it. The publisher was very interested.
Yeah.
But he didn't sponsor it because somebody probably told him, not to sponsor it. So the book died. Died after 2 weeks because of the church, because this book would have created a lot of problems, in the section of that time. And the same thing happened to me also in a different situation in a newspaper. One day, there's this big paper in Italy called the Corriere della Sera. Occasionally I write for them. They are very, bourgeois, middle class, so I tend not to write too much, but they pay a lot, so So one day what happened was, there's a journalist there that goes to the Pope, to the new Pope, and asks him to show him his library and to point to 20 books from his library, and this paper was going to republish all those books. Now, this Pope decided that his first book, his first choice, before Dostoevsky, before anything, was Ethel Manning. Ethel Manning was born in Ireland, had some Irish connection or whatever. I don't think she's an Irish author, but she has Irish connection. And she was bisexual, lesbian, she had everything. Anarchist, And the Pope, I was wondering whether the Pope knew this or not, because probably he knew it, and it was very smart move, because the message he was sending was that you can love your enemy, in a way. So anyway, what happened is they have to write an article on this writer. They can't find anybody knowing anything about Ethel Manning. They asked me, and I said, okay, I know a few things about it. I write the article. I know it's the Pope's choice, but I have to tell the truth. So I told them, I even described, I even quoted from a passage from her diary when she kisses a girl or something like that. I never worked anymore for the paper. Never anymore. I mean, the article came out, and then 2 days after, actually, in the cultural supplement of the article, there was a contrary article that kind of balanced, the day. After that,
This was
last year. Last year.
Yeah.
So this is the power of censorship and of stereotypes. This is the power of stereotypes. It seems like when we talk about stereotypes, it's not just, as I said, wine or something. It's actually something that is deep in our mind, because we see the other through our mind.
Yeah.
If our mind is full of stereotypes, kind of difficult to overcome.
Fascinating choice by the Pope, though. This is a fantastic Pope. It was non-believers like me, but it's fantastic. Yes. I wonder, will she be translated and published? That will be your Berlusconi equivalent.
Well, Trump Press at the moment, what they do is they try and rediscover, authors who might have slipped below the radar. So that would be really interesting thing to
Many women, I'm sure, went that way.
Fantastic
books that you discover.
by
by accident.
So she would be an interesting one to suggest.
Yeah, but this book is about Jesuits. It's about conversion. Very boring book. It's one of the worst things that I have ever read.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
Let's try the others then. She's dead. We are safe.
She was a good intellectual, but this book about the Jesuits, I really.
So, anything to add?
Yeah, about Ireland from the viewpoint of Italian readers. Yeah, as I said before, the first point to be made is that probably until 30, 40, 50 years ago, the Irish people were read as though they were English. Okay? This is not just the case of James Joyce. This is the case of Oscar Wilde. This is the case of several authors, Jonathan Swift.
And the Nobel Committee would agree with you. Those authors are considered British, don't they?
Yeah. There was perhaps, in my opinion, there was a turning point with Flann O'Brien when it was translated into Italian. Flann O'Brien, at Wing Two Birds, was translated into Una pinta, a pint, di inchiostro, of ink, irlandese, of Irish ink. A pint of Irish ink. So they realized that there was obviously enough in Irish subtext, and that they could rely on that in order to, you know, that by the title is a label. It is often not decided by the translators. Most frequently, the publishers decide how to
It's a marketing,
translate
it's
the
a
title.
marketing business.
It's basically one of the most important processes within the marketing dimension. Okay. Una pinta d'inchiostro irlandese, in my opinion, was a turning point. After that, Irish authors were translated as Irish authors. And yeah, Roddy Doyle is also important, and perhaps because Roddy Doyle's novels were made in two ways. So it is perhaps not through books that Ireland became such a big issue as through movies and songs. U2, I don't like U2 either, but they were great. They were doing very well at the time. Most people would probably love them, including those cultural tourists from Italy visiting Ireland in the 80s and 90s. And after that, things have changed, and it's true. Italian publishers are afraid of working, afraid of books, novels, where there are no stereotypes. They're afraid of that, yeah. Basically because the Italian readers are supposed to be stupid. This is the conception of the Italian readership, according to several publishers. Not all of them, but several. And definitely a writing which is well beyond all the stereotypes. A writer who's not so much about a writer who doesn't describe situations in pubs, who's not so much about the stereotypical attitude of male characters showing off, being lunatic, being creative. That wouldn't be felt to be too much Irish. They would be probably looking for something else. This is something which applies to several publishers. Again, not all of them, but many of them for sure. I would say that things are definitely changing now. So finally, there is an attention slightly growing attention for Irish authors who are writing about universal topics, like in your case, probably in Donald's case, universal issues from the point of view of an Irishman, of an Irish woman, which is obviously enough.
I think what actually counts though is the market. Everything is one sort of comfort, even before it's written. So Italian publishers follow the flow, whatever trends at Frankfurt, and Schneid could probably tell us all about that. Whatever trends at Frankfurt, it goes for auction and is sold. I don't think they go and choose the standardized. I don't know if I agree with you.
But I think there's less input from Italy in
Oh,
Italy
right.
than in other countries. I mean, we've supported almost 200 titles into French. And when I was looking through the books to prepare this display today, I was struck by how many poetry books are translated and how relatively few novels have been translated, particularly in the last 10 years. So there has been a distancing in terms of Italian engagement with contemporary Irish literature. And we're lucky that we have people like Andrea translating Elsker Rattle and Donal Ryle. Not to mention someone attempting Finnegan's Wake.
Is it fewer grants or fewer
There are fewer books being bought, and there are fewer applications coming to Ireland.
That's a consequence. Yeah, that's a shame because it went through a flourishing period, didn't it?
It certainly did. I'd say from, like you said, 1990 until about 2000 was the key time for the acquisition of Irish novels. And Irish literature was in fashion across Europe.
Yeah.
From following the Frankfurt Book Fair in '96 in particular. But what's interesting is that I think Italy is behind the trend at the moment, because there's been huge upsurge in countries like Germany and the Netherlands, where everything new that comes out is being acquired. as you say, before it's even published
before
in
it's
English.
even published in English or even still being written. There is a question of a plateau. So it plateaued in Italy earlier than other countries, and that
that
might
occurs
explain
coming up again, so hopefully.
the difference. But I'm not sure I'm so pessimistic as Andrea is in terms of the poor quality. Maybe,
No, I'm not pessimistic. No.
there's such a negative view.
No, I'm not pessimistic. I would say that in Italy, perhaps more than in other countries, publishers do follow the wave. As she was saying, there was a great, at that time, Ireland was fashionable, and that's why they were publishing a lot of books, and they were looking for books which, in their opinion, were genuinely Irish. In their idea, genuinely Irish meant all the stereotypes they have been mentioning so far. Okay? By the time the fiction was fading away, I presume, and this is the good part of it, okay, my optimistic view, is that now truly and genuinely Irish stuff will be published by the very good publishers we do have. So perhaps few books, but certainly better books.
And
Which
hopefully
is
the
not a
translators will be
pessimistic
better
view.
paid, because this has been an ongoing problem in our
Yeah.
engagement with Italian publishing houses,
Yeah.
that we can see the translators have been paid very little, and
Yes.
that they're being made to deliver very fast.
Yeah.
So you
True.
problems with money and problems with time, and that's a huge problem.
Bad translation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The other big problem is that people read less and less of it.
of course. Well, everywhere.
That's
Although there's a famous story of La Visita Felice, which sold 22,000 copies. This is May Brennan's The Visitor. 22,000 copies in Italy, 2,500 copies in Germany. So taste can be
Taste,
part
yeah,
of it, and
yes.
a good publisher who runs with something. This was done by Moore, and it was a phenomenal. The Insurrection of Dublin has just been done. Tell us about it.
Okay. No, it's interesting. I mean, this is James Stevens, the writer of The Cromwell Gold.
Yeah.
He was in Dublin during the Rising, and he wrote a diary, a journal, 7 days journal. So he basically wrote down what he saw day by day. He didn't understand much of what was going on, so there was no newspapers, a lot of gossiping around. But it's very interesting because slowly during the week he starts understanding what is happening, and talking with the people. He also senses the fact that there's a lot of contradictions in the reaction of the other people to the Rising. So a lot of them are very passionate about it, a lot of them are very dismissive about it. So it's a great book, and we're doing it for the centenary,
Yeah.
But for some reason it had to come out before. I don't know why. Well, probably it was an agreement on the copyright, but it's good because it's been launched so many times. Like we already launched like 5 times, and it's not going to be doubled up.
And in this case, Italy's ahead of the trend.
Yeah, and it's a
Which
very
is not
small.
necessarily good, but
It's a very small publisher, but very serious, and they pay okay. I mean, compared to other people, So it's a good book.
yeah, it looks good. It's
Katja, can I tell you a story about your Albanian publisher? Because you said earlier you had no idea why you're published in Albania. And the answer is a very funny one.
Okay.
I think, apart from the fact that she loved your book, she's extremely Italophile. She sent her children to study in Italy. She buys all her clothes in Italy. And she heard of you in Italy.
Okay.
And she's the only published women writer. She published a lovely novel by Karen Ardiff as well.